Raising Unicorns.
Harmon Brothers.
So today we've got some marketing headlines to cover.
It's time for the marketing headlines.
I've been noticing a trend where small companies are calling out big companies for ripping them off, which I think is cool. I have a few different examples. So the first one is Skinny Dipped, which is an almond company. I saw a TikTok post where they called out Diamond, which is, as we know, the famous almond brand.
The nut conglomerate.
The Nutty. And they are now making thinly dipped almonds in chocolate. And so it was a cheeky little post that was like, hey, Diamond, thanks for loving our idea so much. And in the comments, it was kind of mixed. Some people were like, you can't own that. It's a chocolate-covered almond. Anyone would eventually be like, yeah, maybe let's do less chocolate. And then other people were like, yeah, you go, Skinny Dipped. And then another example is it's called Pop Flex. It's a skirt. It's another like small company that patented their brand eventually after Shein tried to rip off their skirt. And again, mixed reviews. Some people were like,
Is this the pickleball skirt? Okay.
Have you seen it?
Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And so some people were like, hey, that seems like broad enough that anyone can take that design. And then other people were like, no, that's messed up. Shein's ripping you off. You're losing money over that. And so I'm going to support you because I know that there's like greater forces at work. And then the last example is like the Momofuku brand, the Chili Crunch.
Mm-hmm.
David Chang, who owns that brand, is suing Michelle Tu, who owns a brand Hamaya, which is just another, like Chili Crunch.
Yeah.
Brand. And on that, almost everyone is unanimously saying like, hey, that's not cool, man. Like you're a really big brand. They're a very small brand. And it's not similar enough that you should be taking hits. A cease and desist seems unfair.
Well, one thing I think it's like kind of nice about the zeitgeist right now is that everybody is kind of by default, regardless of the circumstances, on the side of the little guys. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like everybody feels that like, oh man, there's like big companies that just take advantage of people and that like have so much weight to throw around, like someone like Facebook or Amazon or like big tech companies or like Procter & Gamble who just has a billion SKUs and tons of money and power.
Or like Pepsi. It's like
Pepsi,
you own anything.
Yeah, so you own half the food at the grocery store.
So if you sue Deathwater, it's like, no, you can't take that away from us too.
Give us Deathwater. We know it's just canned water, but we love it and it brings us so much joy. I do think it can be a really good move. We've done it for some companies like calling out like Traeger, who was kind of like the big player for smoker pellet grills. Yeah. And especially too, if you have like a differentiation, like why they're a better product, like too, like for a leg to stand on. Yeah. And like, I think that it can work really, really well just because, again, I think if you're the small guy, it's like it's innocent until proven guilty, and they give you the benefit of the doubt. So especially when you got a big person, like a big company coming in and kind of punching down at you, I think it's like almost a missed opportunity if you don't find out some cheeky response, a public image response, you know what I mean, to kind of combat this big bully coming in and kind of punching down. Yeah,
I think that's a great point. In comedy, there's like punching up and punching down, and if you're punching down, you're like making fun of someone who has less power than you, like just in any given situation. Yeah. And so I think we are much more forgiving if you're punching up, which is like, I'm going to call out people who like have way more power than me. And in a way, that's like one of like small brands like superpowers that like the people will often side with you. Mm-hmm. And even if they don't, I think like with Skinny Dipped, I think it's smart. Even if there is a little controversy, people are talking about it. Yeah. Suddenly there's a conversation. Do you own that? Is that your thing? Are they copying you? Or are they just... Yeah. And so I think that's probably worth it either way.
I've got one for you, and I'm curious to know what you think. Okay, so Tesla, right? Pioneers in the electric vehicle space. They had the biggest market share by a long shot for a long time. Their sales are struggling. They are really, really struggling this last quarter. They missed their sales target. Their vehicles have not been refreshed for a long time. There's a lot of like question whether the Cybertruck is actually going to be a success and how many orders will they have, because it's still a very expensive truck.
Oh, wow.
And so they actually, at the end of last year, they actually turned on a marketing team, because one of the things famous about Tesla is they've never done any outbound advertising because the products were so differentiated and so far ahead of any other EV company that they didn't really have to. So they turned on a marketing team shortly, and then at the end of Q1 they announced their quarterly earnings. I think it was last week or a couple weeks ago, and they just missed their targets horribly. Like, they still were way off, and so they let go of their advertising team, like marketing team. And I'm curious to know if you think that's a good idea or a bad idea, because
to let go of their marketing team?
Like they only did it for a very short period of time. If you go look at the market of all these other products that are out there, like the Rivian, or these, like Volkswagen has some competitors in some similar car like kind of segments, Tesla still is wiping the floor with them in many ways, both from like a range, usability, and like there's a lot of things about Tesla that they still have a huge edge on them. And so I think it's like you need to really call out those differentiated features of why Tesla is still why it's the number one brand and why it's still better than almost all these other offerings that are out there.
We believe in testing. Like, that's such a huge tenet of our approach. And so I think it seems crazy to be like, we tried it, it failed, goodbye, as opposed to realizing that, yeah, you have to try a bunch of stuff to see if that works, you know, online. You can't just put out like one campaign and then be like, okay,
it's over.
I guess marketing as a whole doesn't work. That seems crazy. This also goes back to underdog, like big bully situation where, again, I think a lot of people see Elon Musk as like a bully.
Yeah, because I mean, I think there's a lot of people who liked it first because of Elon, because he was an underdog. He was doing something that was wildly innovative. He wasn't patenting things. He was trying to change the world to get them to adopt EV, and all this stuff around the technology of their battery charging system, their propulsion system, like the motor drive. All of it was open for anyone to copy, because he was just like, I just want to make the world like drive on EVs, because I think that's the future. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of things about like his approach where he's like, I want to change the world. And like, the only way you can do that is if you get mass adoption. And that is not going to be realized through IP battles where you're suing people over taking your technology. He's like, it's going to be made by everybody having huge quantum leaps in like the actual usability of the product. So I in many ways, like, he had that underdog story up until this like Twitter X fiasco and like this free speech absolutism that like he's kind of the hill that he's dying on right now. And I think it is hurting the company. So I think, to me, it's like Tesla does have an opportunity to rebrand at least some of the outward image of the company to be still this incredibly innovative company that's like driving on the bleeding edge of innovation for EVs and what it can be. A good proxy, maybe not a direct proxy, but like something maybe like we can compare is like Squatty Potty was being marketed as like a medical device, for a long time. And like it was for people that like were in colon cancer treatment units or people that had like problems with bowel issues, whereas I feel like our ad made it a little bit more like got out of that shadow of like that narrow niche, and also made it for like everybody, and made it fun and playful, right? And so like expanding that beyond like the perceived original scope of like who the company is and who it's for, I think definitely helped it blow them open to where, there's tons of people who know Squatty Potty now, use it, enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's not embarrassing to have it in your house. It's like cool. People are like, "Oh, Squatty Potty? You
take dumps with Squatty Potty too? Isn't it great?
We love it." Yeah.
So I think it's just like there's different ways you can reposition a product, and I think that like advertising is a good way to control the narrative, especially when the narrative gets like out of your hands or is in a totally different direction you didn't want it to go. I do think we need to do an update, Shay.
Okay.
On TikTok. Tiki-taki. We talked about this a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the actual ban on TikTok passed the Senate and was signed into law. What's going on there is that they have 270 days or 9 months with a 3-month extension if there's certain conditions that are met to have the Chinese ownership interest of the company divested completely and have a US-based purchaser take over that share. If not, it gets fully banned in the United States, which is wild.
Yeah, I've been seeing more and more influencers say, hey, meet me on Instagram.
Really?
Just
They're
in
pushing.
case. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's wild. I mean, I can't think of some time where we've had precedent like this. There's no precedent of like, what's this going to look like? There's been other apps that have been taken off the App Store where like what's it called? Owlet. It got banned by the FDA because it was saying it was claiming too much of it, like as far as a medical device of what it could do to monitor a child's heartbeat. And so it got banned, even though the app still connected. If you had it downloaded, it's still connected to the device and still functioned, but you couldn't download the app. It got like
Another time.
you couldn't re-download it, but if you already had it on your phone, it would still work.
Huh.
So I don't know what they're going to do, if they're going to shut off access like on an IP basis to TikTok servers. And then there's other things you can do, like VPNs, where you're like getting access to it, like acting like you're in another country. You know what I mean? Where it's not banned. So it'll be really wild and interesting to see how that shakes out. And because TikTok is like fully like, nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to comply. We're going to fight this 100% of the way. So I hope that it'll be really interesting to see. But from a marketer's perspective, I think organic content like that is made in the style of TikTok isn't going away. Yeah. It might change where you go. So I wouldn't abandon your TikTok strategy from a marketing perspective or that style of content for paid ad spend environments. I don't think it's going to go away. Right. But it might change what it looks like and who you're spending with. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a losing situation for marketers, because whenever there's less options, there's more price control with a very small few number of people. Yeah. And TikTok was one of the few competitors that were actually coming in and changing things up and growing exponentially and causing a huge threat to the incumbent, like kind of big dogs. Right.
Yeah. There are so many small businesses that I've seen grow on TikTok that I've like found out about from TikTok, and I've bought from them.
Yeah, I bought on TikTok, like that whole,
Yeah, hopefully, keep an eye out for the alternatives that come there, because it really is such a great place for the underdogs to like rise up and find their audience.
What you got? What do you got left?
Okay. So this one's short. Adam Scott did a partnership with Philips, the shaving utensil. What is that called? A razor.
Shaving utensil? It's a knife?
Anyways, I thought it was fun. Let's watch it.
Okay. Is this shave and groom like Adam Scott?
Yeah.
Even as a teen, I still shaved. And I would nick my Adam's apple, which is why I switched from manual to electric.
You can't hire Adam Scott if you're a small business, but...
Maybe.
Maybe. Just a little bit of money laundering and you can afford it. But you can be... it's free to be meta and like make fun of advertisements, which I think is a sweet spot right now. It's so fun to make fun of how ads usually are. Yeah. So I think... if you have room to do that, or like Adam Scott's playing himself, like if you have your CEO in your ad, like tease yourself a little bit, like I think we as a audience right now, we're super into like whatever feels like honesty. And I think that's like, it's fun to be like, oh yeah, he's not playing a character in an ad. He's playing Adam Scott in an ad, which is how most celebrities are in ads nowadays. Yeah. And then also it's like, oh yeah, he's acknowledging this is an ad, which is like fun. I think we're craving that right now.
Yeah, I think it is one of those things where when there's like a convention of how you expect ads to behave, and we're kind of breaking that. Yeah. Like one of the things we've done at Harmon Brothers is like, we have these ridiculously over the top videos, and oftentimes we'll call it out like, yes, this actually is a real product. It actually really does work. Yeah. And you're like kind of breaking that convention where you're like, you usually don't talk to the audience that way in an ad.
Breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly. And I think that like that's like one thing like Ryan Reynolds has done really, really well, where he's playing himself, and like he's also really funny and charming, but he's also like kind of calling out like ads, and he's also calling out big wireless with Mint. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that like is very much so like refreshing compared to big campaigns that are, self-important or like are kind of more in that traditional advertising vibe where it's situational comedy that just feels cringy, and you're like, but this is clearly just trying to be a shill for a product. Rather than like being like, yeah, we know it's a commercial, but you're having fun, right?
Yeah, you know what I mean? Fun. It's great. It works. Here's what we do.
You have to be mindful, like, is the audience having fun in this, and how will they perceive this comedy? How will they perceive this bit? And I think you're right. Like, that's why people like this, where it's a little bit more, how do I say, like you're self-aware, and then you know that you're not taking yourself seriously as an advertiser, and then you know that people are sick of stuff like this, and you're okay with that, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna give you something different, you know?
Yes, agreed.
And I think I think that's why a lot of our commercials work so well, is because we try and break the mold of a segment that we're in, right? Like where we're like not trying to be the cutesy, like well manicured brand. We're trying to be playful and mess around with it and push the boundary to the line of like, what would someone in this space actually say? Like when we did the Daniel Stark, it was a personal injury attorney, which personal injury attorney ads are either one of two. They're really boring, or they're just like, one call, that's all. Call me, Craig Swab. Or they're like the Texas Hammer ads where it's like, call me the Texas Hammer. I'll get you the most money because I'll smack him with a hammer because I'm a Texas Hammer. You know, it's like just like the most obnoxious crap.
Yeah, screaming in your
just
face.
Screaming.
You can feel the spit like
just
hitting you.
Spackling your face. And so we were like, let's do like the complete, let's zag when everyone else is zigging. So we can do something that has some playful personality, but also gets to the point and is something you've never seen a personal injury ad do. Right. And I think that's like people like about that. Like, oh, I haven't seen this before. Like this feels fresh. It feels different, offbeat. And
that's another example of we kind of made fun of insurance companies, which is another like big dog everyone loves to hate, you know?
Oh, easy. Yeah.
And so I think
progressive.
Yeah. Right, it's like we love Flow, but like not when you're actually trying to call the company saying, "Please, can you cover my bills?"
Injuries.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that was such a fun ad.
Well, great, Shay. That was a great episode.
Yeah. Well.
So always punch up.
Yes.
Always entertain.
Yes.
And don't take yourself too seriously.
Amen.
Thank you for watching Raising Unicorns.
Subscribe now.